Gilg Jew, Gilg J as Gilg Nerach.
Babalia Musal de Gurgus and Claare Show, Claare na Gael. This is Robert Cutting Carswell, Robert de Carslach.
Have you ever had tell of old Bobby Bob?
And I'm here to present Claare na Gael, with part of the programme in the English language as leis Pert Jane Claare sa Gilg, and with part of the programme in the Manx Gaelic, Ginian Amera, the mother tongue of Elin Vannin, the Isle of Man. As Mavanach Dutrish, as Blaine by Nordut. I thought I'd look at the first editions in the new year of the newspapers from 200 years ago, the Manx Rising Sun and the Manx Advertiser. A short taich je skiel na bredig en Grimm, as for me a chi grey de wel I Maya Ren, ach de enema character Maya Ren for die, ach treuw tammy smullion a skiel heen genodum grey de wel fissem na vis tach rangi. She Tom Ordegd and skiel shaw. However, the year hardly begins before there's a commemoration of a tragic event, the judicial murder of William Christian, Illiam Christine, Illiam Dawn, on the 2nd of January 1663. Here occurred in Cújach. Tawas geistjach rish radio vanning, stasiwn na nasiwn, viscol scalia mach, vai dulish, alien vanning.
Vau jeshen iller sul jeshet jeshen og der nodjen gat hoistaians fear she true fagus gonless fermau donjer be as te the veselium mubrishan and grip bellen the setaler ekronas vai bjarnes of the grey danks frunen the court to the best, lesh fish and falls above fallen then grace, and bing the haglach the bind the Gael mui, as te the Basilium obration and grey. Lig feren se talu fer Elias and ne ac Eliam a cawal lig se volche Eliam a cawal sloch na bebwi she the Vasilium donor and Brijan and grip Nims me na the jaflesh mojas fresh tell the wagons banglen the grina heisa well coats nigh her an urgent lesh orderary get the Vasilium don Brijan and grip Dreamer and Mishara cry alive the bears look Tillium donuts run as fine and Nogin Joe cast it as a hidden neck sheep as Glen Christine Gennel as Slen Egger Tree.
Bears Illiam Dawn, the lament on the death of Illiam Dawn, Illiam a Christine, William Christian. At the start of 1826, the island was still feeling the repercussions of the public disorder following the imposition by Bishop George Murray of a very high level of tithes on a staple of the diet, the potato. The tithe on potatoes in Ireland was set at 2 shillings and sixpence an acre, and in England it was 3 shillings an acre. George Murray decided that he would set a tithe of 12 shillings an acre on Manx farmers. Well, people blocked tithe collectors from entry into their fields, and there was physical violence against the tithe collectors. The potato harvest wasn't particularly good anyway, and it was a necessity of life. Crowds gathered to protest at places where potatoes had been taken by tithe collectors for storage. Some property was damaged and destroyed, including by fire, where at that time arson attracted the death penalty, and later it was said that the fire had been started accidentally. However, it does show the depth of feeling that had been aroused by the bishop's clumsy attempt to impose such a high tithe on potatoes, on such a necessary commodity, a staple of the diet. Tred yr awf y bodach bach on, as vech na hai coolch cholly synjaster beg, as ynnach brother an aisle, chouds van ben chesje egge na sai ag a chwil snewy eg. As ynnach grey, chud drie tegen petchen by me gictamoon, het taastacht an taiein, as de taaien sly eliach o shienach is ginnel. Te, dregger a ben chesje egge, as renny arsnache. De rauwach fair ein, as een fair shen go begges beg, wegnes moon an ordegem, kreeg om manre beiden. Ver shen de jaru kulina mien machri. As hagerij looked tammelt, de rugger wen, petje, was slen jint on suljen alten egge, ach, na rauw wegnes moon ordeg. Esch doet na parenten, te kaart mar was een giri, as nimmers ko graide de moer. As hugget en de me rare woods, Tom ordeg. As gede dugget de paltje wie, ga de zijn smoe. Ach hannach de girach and unwoods as treve rugged ag an taiacht. This is a Welsh song now about a blackbird, given something of a tango flavour, in fact, by Welsh trio Elfen.
Der in die I bliv in Sira. I pigaira davodaria. Sorting doors, Glory Kid Welly, Holly Hint, Erin Ryan Gary. In die tree path, see the northy me.
Stacey Blythe on accordion and vocals, Helena Rees on fiddle, and Jordan Price-Williams on bass. And as the trio Elfen, they performed a Welsh traditional song about a blackbird, a derin dee. For eblid yn fi baeg Tom o'r deg, as we firach dylus chrina, deraw de chwliwrid fy jintege, chitlesh. La deraw ren yn erege erlwyd de gholmach sy Gael de jare fooi, as dwrt mor de beg des yn hun, ne salium deraw pech enjach aan de chorlesje kaart de chit me chweel. O, ma dilly Tom o'r deg, fodym corliam a chart, lig daw sian y ynnw, as ege tre ciart, nis. Ren yn geira as dwrt Cryn hach ni yw cwlina sien, tawys ro veg de chommel a chastrina. Scummad a sien den chwys ma Gouds tam a waar freilrische snieuwek, bim me hai ons klees a gabel, as nie minst en red de gol. Wel, dort een erge, nie met corre bear, en ongeerd. Treven treer dit de gol toiag der en red, ren a waar freilrisch snieuw, lug die kort Tom o'r deg stjach ons klees a gabel. And the fallout from the public disorder of late 1825, because of Bishop George Murray's proposed potato tithe, can still be seen in the first edition of the Manx Rising Sun newspaper of 1826, which reports, "At the Timble Court on Thursday last, a bill passed to prohibit the exportation of potatoes during this season of scarcity. The riot bill for the preservation of property is in great forwardness, and will probably be completed when the court will meet again. We earnestly hope that measures will then be adapted for opening a negotiation for the commutation of tithes, which has become so very necessary for the peace of the island and the welfare of the church." Well, the commutation of tithes was to allow for a cash payment in lieu of, as it were, taking the actual food out of the mouths of the people, who relied on the potato as a staple of their diet. And as the Manx Rising Sun alluded to, there was a difficulty because of scarcity at that time. Keeping us in the loop there was Scottish band Manran. Well, I say Scottish band, but one of the members is whistle, flute and uilleann pipes player Ryan Murphy from County Cork, who also plays with Emer, but predominantly a Scottish band, Manran.
Manx Radio.
Stasiwn yn asiwn today, sio Radio Fanning. A sé Claare na Gael vis rechlash and cartnish, Meryn Peen, Robert Gytyn Carswell, Robert a Carslach.
Did the ever hear tell of old Bobby Bob?
De cer dot clash and de Cleden Claare rish through de Chraman Eish rish, inadega Radio Fanning. On short, a podcast Jane Claare again nasty nies. Na trúd an reich de podcast ed, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Audible, Spotify, Google Podcasts, TuneIn, na Alexa. 2024 saw the celebrations of 200 years of the Royal National Lifeboat Institution at the instigation of Douglas resident Sir William Hillary, who took part in rescues in Douglas Bay. One of those rescues was of a Royal Navy vessel, the Vigilant, in October of 1822. 2 months later came the wreck of HMS Racehorse on Lang Ness. A single vessel made 4 successful rescue missions out of Castletown, but on the return journey from the 5th, that boat was swamped, and 3 of the rescuers and 5 crew members of the Racehorse were lost. These were the events which were the spur for Sir William Hillary's prospectus, which bore fruit in 1824. The first Manx Rising Sun for 1826 says, "A meeting, consisting of the most respectable inhabitants, took place at Castletown, for the purpose of cooperating for the preservation of seamen's lives from shipwreck, according to the National Institution. We are happy to hear that it was numerously attended, and the Lieutenant Governor presided. As Mursor and Tom Ordeg imman rosh, as gillach mach, hop jat de Gael. Mursor haya kabel rosh kart morawe manchereg a gimmene, as charne a chart rish a red kart gus a Gael. Esh hagere kart chaus wat gulmagit konjeel, as van Fairbeg gillach mach, hop jat, de jach des jory sha. Tjich, dut verjou, krein achter so. On shent a kart gull a red, as den immanach gillach mach a Gael, as na jaich en el raag en bol erbij. Svieg weg, door de verelje. Nimmage eirt gaart, as feathen maak quais leshy. As high a gaart, kaat through de Gael, soeskus a wol van foier regiarit. Tre ren Tom Ordeg getting shilje jen erege, jilje maach. Jich me, show mish as a gaart hem. Nish, gau noes me. Ren en kummel a kabel lesh a lau cherege, as lesh a lau yesh, ren e troggle noes a mac begege, mach as cliche kabel. Cornish band Caracana sing now of The Banks of the Foy.
It was late in the evening as the autumn light fell. A stranger came wandering through wood, field and dell. To find ease for his heartache he'd roamed the wide world, and he found in the West Land a sweet Cornish girl. She was graceful as the grasses that waved on the moor. She was bright as the waters that washed to the shore, and her hair was like a halo around her face curled, and he fell for the charms of that sweet Cornish girl. Oh, may I walk beside you on the banks of the Foy, for you captured the heart of this wandering boy. I could stay here forever with you by my side, and never more roam the cold world so wide. She said, I'll walk beside you in Tristram's fair dells, brother who's far, far away, and I know he'll return for me one day. He wrapped her in his arms, where she clung like a child, and she wept, for she knew that her heart was beguiled by this stranger whose touch turned her body to flame, and her loving heart was riven in twain. I must wait and be faithful, our love cannot be. He said, I will go, you will never more see. As they vowed to each other, they cried out in vain, for they knew they must never be parted again. So they walked to the river, hand in hand, side by side, were embraced by the waters, washed away by the tide. Round each other, enfolding their arms tightly curled, now he's kissing forever his sweet Cornish girl. He wrapped her in his arms, where she clung like a child, and she wept, for she knew that her soul was beguiled by this stranger whose touch turned her body to flame, and her loving heart was riven in twain. When you hear the sweet curlew cry over the moor, or the breeze whisper secrets across these high towers, when the wavelets lap gently against the long strand, it's a sigh for these lost lovers from this sweet land by the green banks of Foy, where the wind shadows dart. You might hear in the ripples you've stolen my heart, and then think his reply, you're my precious pearl, and I love you, yes I love you, my sweet Cornish girl.
The Banks of the Foy, performed by the Cornish quartet, sometimes quintet, Caracana. Ren Tom o'r deg sai shiser cap, as len ginnel as jint bwyach. Tre ren yn de yori fag yn wat jint balw les yindus. Fe yere ren yn dere look de goil riliadi a Gaelia, greirish, jicha saw. Oddach a fair by cost of fortin done, the jinnach sin tash ben sa valia ergid, aber the jinnach sin kionach Mar saw hired gus a yara the foy as dortad, cracked on the dunya beg, nimage gol kerel nach jinnach adhi be chit A jinnum dregger an she bogam a chrie, as chane son ulu an ergid sa tail yinnen say a crack. Ach ren Tom o'r deg, trechile een of a golair, drappel soos arbel en koet en ege, as gouds veen a haier a gielen, doorte mor hanisch se gleesjegge. Maar, kart am ai dot ligge dau gol, hem bak lie de loer. Esch ren an ege a chord en degwunje, son taus moer de hurged. And the Lieutenant Governor at that time was Cornelius Smelt, in office from 1805 until his death in 1832. A pedestal, though without a statue on it, was erected in Castletown as the Smelt Memorial, and much of the money for the memorial came from Sir William Hillary. Returning to the Manx Rising Sun, it says that a committee was appointed, of which the founder, Sir W. Hillary, is the president. That meeting was in Castletown, and the Manx Rising Sun for Saturday the 7th of January also reports that this morning about 200 recruits have arrived for the purpose of making this a military depot. It's expected the detachments are to be kept at all the towns. This will enliven them and excite the attention of the ladies. The detachment of the 95th is reported to be about to leave the island by the same vessels that brought the recruits. Well, the number of the 95th was given to the Derbyshire Regiment of Foot in 1823, but a different 95th Regiment of Foot had been garrisoned here some years before. Now, at Anchuniach last year we had a beautiful concertina solo of a haunting Irish tune, but here it is with Irish lyrics, sung by Muireann na Cowlibh. A song from the Blasket Islands off Kerry coast. That was Muireann na Cowlibh. The Manx Rising Sun also has this report. On Friday last, the Lively, smack, belonging to Peel, John Corkill master, was seized off Port Iron by a detachment of preventive officers stationed at Peel. with 2 tons of pepper on board, destined for Ireland. There were 7 Irishmen on board, to whom the goods belonged, and they, together with the prize and seamen, were all conveyed to Stranraer, where the revenue cutter is stationed to which the officers belong. If these men had effected a safe landing in Ireland with their contraband commodity, it's supposed they would have cleared no less than £500 by it. As the first cost here in large quantities is only after the rate of 8p per pound, and is sold on the other side for 3 shillings, this immense gain is so strong a temptation to smuggling that it's not very surprising for adventurous characters like the lower orders of the Irish to run the greatest risks in that nefarious pursuit. Vrian deiron je tomodeg a ball bailach ve na hai. O, chor me dulje geneded, dort Irish Fairjow, esh fodum shul me geert mooi, as Gael bach jen cheer, gen gau ve je tujem voi. Mar so rennet mor bailjes. As tref a tom deg chor sledden leis an egge, ren na dulje Gael toiach cújach an red. As vertroil der a henke choleertes, as vrij a fair beg de be currit cheese rish tamelt de yenuchin day, as look pert de golied rennet cordeel. Mar so ren an dunje Gael nuse by an edegge, as hug e stiach ons maar eg chow an redje. As renne raier soel chalirach, as look de snau megit masten a clashen, renne skirre de doltajum stiach ons tol loch, kaart mor be jeen de yenu. Faster my beg dew na mainsteren, for die shoe golde valium a goosh, dilia oru, as gerich die. Renne dry soes, as rennet lacht de megirt les na magic an ox a tol loch. A quartet of musicians from Fougères in Brittany, and they were playing a well-known piece of Breton dance music, set apparently at the edge of the forest, because it's called Costa Chouad.
The Nation Station, Manx Radio.
Sure dat Station na Nation, Radio Vanning, as sé Claare na Gael was guller scalia mark ag an tre ton. Mish, Robert Cutting Carswell, Robert de Carslach.
Have you heard tell of old Bobby Bob?
Ach, we hebben daar runje ons vaardeel. Ren Tom Mordeg snuistjag on de soldiers na soldier. A ser no der owie chit de Venus dorry, we aru gulle redok, sen acht share de value. As Hudson ledden de snee, as de sporren en follemok. Trehoor maak Tom Mordeg de rauwe dengol, ren hij snauw maak as a goelegge voor hollow. Skywach en over, reis hem geert de toel show se dorriges doort hij, sejach weg de vrisje me wandel. Ach, we eich wij tre henke schligrammen we vollem. Shen mij de loer doort hij, nisch vodem kastne de sausje voetne hij. As renne saure hien stjach ongie. Rosh maar uit de roilse wien, giele derunje gold sha, as van derre je greirish en je elia. Krenach vod much reiche de roil Grimm je as urge de tager burchach. Vodem inst you en acht, dilly mach Tom Ordeg. Krenach de shaw, doet vergen a murley, as fo al de lure. As the habit of smuggling, says the Manx Rising Sun, always begets a system of idleness and profligacy, and frequently leads its followers to crime, and even the most fatal consequences, it's surely worth the consideration of government how far the temptation to this illicit traffic ought to be removed, by either limiting the quantity of pepper to be imported into the island to a reasonable allowance for necessary consumption, otherwise to impose such a duty upon it as to render it unprofitable to smuggle anyway. Well, then the Manx Rising Sun has an extended entry under marriages. On Tuesday, said night at Balaf, Mr. John Tier to Miss Mary Christian, both of Derby. A whimsical incident occurred a few hours after the ceremony, which, for a short time, disturbed the hilarity of the festive board. It appears that a certain damsel in the neighbourhood had previously borne 2 children to the bridegroom. Well, Claare once found that he had nothing good to say. Fortunately, he made it into one of his songs, and this is it.
Can't shake this off, can't break it down, can't make it right, can't turn around. You wear me out, I wear you down, we wear each other like a frown. You grip so tight that I can't see the bones beneath your skin, and all I'm gonna do is slip away. The more you cling to me, the less of you I want to see. And I've had nothing good to say, I've had nothing good to say for days. I'll shake this off, I break it down, can't make it right, can't turn around. Still wear me out, still wear you down, we wear each other with a frown. Grip so tight that I can't see the bones beneath your skin, and all I'm gonna do is slip away. The more you cling to me, the less of you I want to see. And I've had nothing good to say, I've had nothing good to say for days. so tight that I can't see the bones beneath your skin, and all I'm gonna do is slip away. The more you cling to me, less of you I wanna see, and I've had nothing good to say, I've had nothing good to say for days.
Matt Claare with his song Nothing Good to Say, going back a fair number of years it has to be said, and all the backing was also performed by Matt in that recording. Of the damsel who's born 2 children of this bridegroom, the Manx Rising Sun reports, conceiving that the nuptial knot ought in justice to have been tied with her, she determined upon executing a curious species of revenge for what she considered an insult to her honour and worth. She accordingly took one of the children of her quondam Adonis, and when the bridal party were in the height of the enjoyment of the wedding feast, she rushed into the room, and pitching the infant upon the table, told them to make it their head dish at supper, and then departed with the celerity of a woodcock. The bridegroom, in a rage, immediately made chase, but the lady was too nimble for him, and he was obliged to return to the company in no little dudgeon, where, after sustaining with tolerable patience for a while the raillery of his friends, he very contentedly consented to take charge of the poor innocent pledge of his amour, and has clothed and put it out to the care of a respectable nurse. Ta mi clash yn pech eniach lord dwrt y merliach. Mar so vat yn siadde was wat geestiach, as lord Tom o'r deg rish. Jyn siw goel mi meriw, nim salge gemacht you en achter you no eh? Cred tau eis vriad. Jys you me geert er a tollu as gaus you taster Jane Vol vait en gered a hit. Ve jere hurade, as chrogat ni say. Tau as go beg doortad, krenach for the us koenelien. Nisje, streggerij, fodem snuist jaagt de heesjach en de baren jaren schemer tagert, as kor macht you creer bi bewaljat gedden. Kaart de loor doortad, nimmers kor eber as fedden macht na vis riennewed. Maar zo tre renke taie tagert, ren tomor deg snuist jachtse schemer. Ach, delia macht les ulju en jaart, wel sju geri ulju na vis on shaw? Maar so van a merly aglich ass, as doortad, Lorna spwigge, na bech pecher bi, na goosta. Gwen Mary was brought up in a Welsh-speaking household, but unusually that household was in Glasgow. And here she plays the harp and sings the song Hwyr. Gwen Mary and the song Hwyr, late, with Gwen Mary playing the harp and singing, Gwilym Bowen Rhys on fiddle, and Jordan Price Williams on cello. Ach ren Tom Ordeg liga na renny clashnad, as dylia Mark Rhys. Gref is siw giri, fel siw giri ulio vis on shaw. As mor so, ren a cogera, van a cadlo and shamer banyedda de sen, clashnay, as jiri sal yavi, as vi geistjach. There's an advertisement on the front page of the Manx Rising Sun for John Ward, a boot and shoemaker of Duke Street, Douglas. And in fact he'd moved to Douglas from Peel, when his shop at the foot of Castle Street was damaged in the Corn Riots of 1821. Now amongst his family was James Cooley Ward, who became a great benefactor, particularly to Peel and Douglas, out of the great fortune he amassed in Canada, where he became a member of the legislature. So it's an incidental point in passing in the Manx Rising Sun, the first edition for 1826. Ach, nisht and treir dit the choral yadi a pebernayach. Between 7 and 9 you can join Chris Pearson as he presents 2 hours of the best chill-out music for your Sunday evening. And then at 9 it's time for Sundown with Judith Leigh. Claare and Gael closes with music from the Sky Band Nightworks, who bring their electronica to Gaelic traditional song with Sheehan. Ach, Sinead Cartnish, and so until the next time, this is Robert Cutting Carswell, Robert a Carslach.
Old Bobby Bob.
Wishing you a very good night. Eve I'm a Criort, as Duts, my Yiri and Share.